I'm 18, I just graduated high school, and I'm leaving the country for at least the next 6 years of my life. At least I think so. In my mind, I've already made the decision, but it just seems like there are constantly people around me telling me that I'm making the wrong choice, that I need to reconsider my options, that I need to really think it through before I make a life-changing decision that I could regret for the rest of my life. So you may be wondering, why am I considering leaving the US in the first place? There are so many great things about the country, and I've grown up here my entire life, so why leave? Well, that's a question that I've asked myself time and time again, and a question that my family members and people around me have asked me too. Well, long story short, it's because of college. To take you back to the beginning, like most other high school seniors, the first half of my senior year I spent applying to several colleges. For me, it was more than 20. My weekdays and weekends consisted of studying for any exams I had, in addition to grinding college essays, preparing for interviews, and crying my eyes out when things got too stressful. Unlike most other high school seniors, I decided to apply to one college outside of the United States, specifically in China. So I guess the reason why I did it in the first place was because, as you can probably tell, I am Chinese ethnically, and my parents grew up in China, and I've pretty much been born and raised in the US, but I guess I've always had that connection to my Chinese ethnic heritage, on top of the fact that I had lots of fun visiting China as a little kid, and I made lots of fun memories, which I've actually documented, by the way, in a video. So if you're interested, you can find that video here if you'd like to check it out. So anyways, yeah, I was like, okay,
you know what, I like China, I am Chinese, I feel like I might as well apply to a school in China.
And I applied to Peking University, or Beida, which was a school in Beijing, and all of my close family members lived in China in Beijing. So I was like, okay, if I actually did end up going, that wouldn't be a bad choice, because I would have family and a support system while I went there. And I guess on top of that, Beida, or Peking University, is a very good university. It's one of the top ranked schools in China, so I knew that if things didn't really work out in the US, or I didn't get accepted into any of the schools that I would be interested in going to, that would be a good option as well. The school year went on, and I was offered an interview in February or March, and so at that point I'd already received several offers from multiple colleges in the US that I thought I could see myself going to for the most part, and so I was less excited, I guess you could say, to participate in that interview. I don't know if any of you guys have ever felt that too, but it's just kind of once you have pretty decent options, your backup plans just don't seem as enticing, and that's how it was for me. I guess you couldn't 100% say that Peking University was my backup, but it was just kind of there, in case things in the US didn't work out. At least that's what I thought it was going to be. And so in the end, I actually did end up doing the interview. It was all in Mandarin, and I honestly kind of struggled. I did not know what they were saying at first. The part of the interview where they had a question, and then we were supposed to kind of debate it. They gave us 2 minutes to consider what our argument was and what we were going to say, and I literally spent those 2 minutes trying to figure out what the question was saying. It was pretty bad. And then when we actually went on to debating, I was just kind of very confused, because I didn't fully understand the question by the end of the 2 minutes, so I had to kind of listen to what other people were saying. And then even after that, I was a little bit confused, but I was able to kind of work out some sort of argument to support my claims. And then flash forward a month or two, I was accepted to Peking University despite my outrageous interview process. But that was super exciting for me. But again, I had already had a lot of options open, because this was April 9th or something when I received my acceptance, my conditional acceptance, which meant that they would accept me so long as my final transcript was, I didn't fail a bunch of classes, which totally made sense. But I'd already been accepted to multiple colleges, and if you're interested in which colleges, I also made a college decision reaction video, which is right here, if you would like to see that and check that out as well. But yeah, so I guess at that time it was a mixture of excitement, but also kind of not really excited, just kind of oh, it is what it is, it's whatever. I don't know, it's just kind of when you start doing something, but then you're what's even the point of this, and then you just kind of give up. I guess that's kind of how I felt at the time. But this is where like all of the opinions started pouring in like a freaking tsunami. I swear to God. It was like my parents were telling me, oh my gosh, this is such like a great accomplishment. This is one of the best universities in China. You should definitely go. Like my dad was like,
if I were you, like, I would go, but like, I'm not telling you should go, but like, I would personally go, and I think that's the best option.
so like, what are you telling me, Dad? Like, I think you're telling me that you want me to go. And then my mom was like,
Yeah, like you would be stupid to give up this opportunity. It's like rejecting Harvard.
and I was like, Mom, it's not exactly like rejecting Harvard. And she was like,
It kind of is. Like, it's the best university in China. Like, why would you not go?
and then my grandparents were like, yeah, like at first they were like,
Okay, that's great, like, but like, we think maybe it might be better to stay in the U.S.
and then like right after we hopped off that call on WeChat, which is like kind of like the WhatsApp or Instagram that people use in China. And so after we got off that call, my grandparents texted me like maybe 10 minutes later, like,
Hey, actually, we thought about it, and we think that you should actually go to the school in China. We think you should come to Beijing. We think you should go to Beijing.
and I was like, okay. Just lots and lots and lots of different opinions. And at this point, like I told some of my friends about it too, and like they were very supportive. But like I don't think any of them actually thought that I was going to travel all the way across the country, or not even the country, sorry, all the way across the world to go to this university and go to this new country that I wasn't honestly entirely familiar with. And like all the while, I just felt like in my family, like most people weren't thinking from my perspective. They weren't really considering like what would be the best for me. They were just like forcing their own thoughts and opinions on me, and to some extent just thinking about themselves, right? Like I don't mean to say that my parents and my grandparents and all that are like selfish people, because they are definitely not. They are definitely like the most caring and supportive people out there. But I just didn't feel like they were really considering me and what I wanted when they were telling me to make a decision that would impact the rest of my life, possibly. It was just like a very frustrating time. On top of the fact, I was already trying to decide like which schools I would go to in the US, like which one I would pick, because the deadline for that was like May 1st. And so I just kind of put it aside for a little bit. I was like, okay, I don't feel like going to China is the best option, given I already had good options in the US. And I was just kind of like, okay, well, let's put that aside. Let's first decide which school I want to go to in the US, and then let's pick it up when I maybe like go back to China during the summer, because we had already had a trip planned. And so my mother, I think, was the most insistent out of all of them. She just kept telling me that I should go to Beida or like go to Cornell, you know, just like that Asian stereotype of like go to the best university, right? Prestige matters, which I personally don't really agree with. And I just like, I felt really frustrated with her at the time, because I just felt like she wasn't really like stepping in my shoes and considering the situation. She was just wholly like telling me what to do based on her perspective, which like I can understand to some extent, but at the same time, it was just kind of like, Mom, like, why can't you understand? Like, this is my future. This is like the next 4 or 6 years of my life. Like, why can't you just like listen to what I have to say? And like, I don't know if other moms are like that too, but just like sometimes I feel like people in general, I think they sometimes have trouble understanding different perspectives and just realizing that there are different opinions outside of their own little bubble. And I guess that's just how it was for my parents to some extent, more so on my mom's side. Eventually, I went back to China early June, and I visited the school. I went to Beida, I went to their main campus. I also went to Beida University's medical school, because they're two separate like campuses, and I honestly really liked it. Like it felt like very, I don't really know how to explain it, but I just felt like that was somewhere that I could see myself staying for the next 6 years, because for international students at medical school, they have to do it for 6 years and not 5. And I also talked to the professor about like, because he taught international students as well, and I actually also observed a class, and I was like, okay, this is like pretty good. Like I don't really understand the lectures completely, but I think over time this is something that I could get adapted to. And so then that's when I started, my mindset like started to shift. I was like, maybe going to China wouldn't be necessarily a bad thing. Maybe that's something that I could actually consider doing, and like spending the next years of my life in China, in Beijing, with my family. And also another thing I would say is less important, but the food was like amazing compared to the food that I had at UT. Sorry, UT, like you're a great school, but I have to say that your food that was served at the cafeteria or like the dining halls wasn't up to par with that of Beida's. in my opinion. And so after I went to the school, I felt like I wanted to go to Beida. Like, I was interested in coming to Beijing. And on top of that, like, I had always wanted to become more connected to my culture, to my ethnicity, to my language, to the Chinese language. I speak Mandarin pretty fluently, I would say, but just not to the point where it's like I can talk about very sophisticated concepts. I thought when I was contemplating this, I was like, I think it'd be really cool to get to have the opportunity to get an education in Chinese in China, have that international experience and broaden my perspective, because like my whole life I've lived in Texas, which there's nothing wrong with that, but at the same time, like after that experience, I really wanted to broaden my perspective and have a change of environment outside of Texas. And that's when I really started thinking like I kind of want to come to Beida. Like, it's something I could definitely see myself doing. And after lots of conversations, I was just like, okay, I think I want to do it. My parents weren't really making the decision for me, and at this time I was also just enjoying time in China and spending time with my family and going out to see like different sites and attractions and things like that. So most people weren't focused in on this issue, but all of that changed when I told people that I had decided that I wanted to come to Beijing, China to continue my college education. And I was like,
I'm coming to China.
And at that point, I felt like everyone had something to say about it. Everyone wanted to give their opinion on what I should or shouldn't do. In the past, my parents were very pushing, like, hey, I think you should come to China. But then once I told them I actually did want to go to China, they were like, I don't know if that's actually the best idea. And then my mom started like telling me about all these negative things about going to China, how stressed out I would be, how difficult it would be for me to compete with all of these top performing students, because the people that go to Peking University are like the top of the top in China for the most part. And she was like starting to make me doubt myself and whether or not I could actually like adapt to going to school in China. And she was telling me how like if I did medical school in China, I might not be able to come back to the US, how residencies don't like people who go to accelerated programs, which technically going to China would be an accelerated program because it's only 6 years and not 8 years. And then just like she started giving me all of this information of why I shouldn't go to China, and it was just so frustrating because I had already made this decision and it was arguably like one of the hardest decisions I'd ever made. And now, like, after she was the one that told me that I should come to China, she was now telling me not to go. And like, I love her so much, but like, it was just really frustrating to hear that from her and how like contradictory those opinions were. And then my grandparents, like, one moment they were telling me, yes, you should come to China, and then they were like, oh, the US is actually better, the US is more advanced, they might give you better education. And then the next they were like, oh, I think you should actually come to China, like China's not bad, like we can help spend time with you. And I was just kind of like, look, I love spending time with you and you guys are my grandparents, I love you so much, but like me making my education decision, like the decision of like whether or not I should stay in the US or come to China, shouldn't be based on whether or not you can spend time with me. Like, I just don't really know how to explain it, but I just like it was just really hard to have all of these conflicting opinions from these people. And like, I know that it wasn't their fault and I know that they were just trying to help me, but it was just really difficult to kind of be around that constantly when you're like already unsure about yourself, when you're already like filled with these doubts and thoughts and concerns, and then having people just kind of like exacerbate that. It was just horrible. And then I guess another thing that really bothered me was like my grandparents telling me, yeah, like I was like, okay, you think I should come to China? Why should I come to China? And then they were like, well, we're here. And I was like, okay. And then they were like, well, if you come to China, then your dad has always wanted to come back to China too, to live here, and like you could help him do that. And that just made me kind of mad,
because I was like, that's great, like I understand, but also I don't think I should be making my decision for the future and happiness of others.
And when I asked them like, what other reasons do you think I should come to China, they couldn't give me any. And so that made me like further question like whether my decision was right or not. And it was just like a very invigorating situation, I guess you could say. Like, I understand that they just wanted to help. It just felt like no matter what I did or said or chose to do, someone had something to say about it. And even once I felt like I'd made my decision, someone said something that made me like question it. And it was just so frustrating. But now I think I'm at the point where I'm just like, okay, I need to stop listening to other people and listen to myself. I need to stop focusing on what other people want for me and what they think is best for me, for my future, for my dreams, my goals and aspirations. And I need to start just listening to myself and focusing on what I want for me, not what other people do. And I think that in life, just in general, like, not just about like this specific situation, people that are going to give you advice, like, they mean well, and they're probably trying to help you make the decision that they think would be the best for you. But at the end of the day, like, no one is really going to understand you as well as you understand yourself. People are going to try to help and make you make decisions, but they're not going to be the ones that have to deal with those consequences later on. They're not going to be the ones that have to live the life that they choose for you, right? You're going to be the one that's going to be living your life and facing consequences, not anyone else. So I guess I just want to say to anyone out there that's making a tough decision or is going to make a tough decision or has already made a tough decision, I think it's important to listen to others, right? And consider their opinions and their thoughts and perspectives, but just don't let them completely influence your own opinions and judgment. And don't live your life for others. Live your life for yourself. And I think that's what I'm going to be doing. And while there's still a lot of uncertainty, I'm excited for what the future holds. If you enjoyed this video or want to watch other videos about my life or motivation and academics and how to succeed and things like that, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you guys next time.